Welcome back to 2018 AT&T Business Summit. I'm Des Blanchfield. We're in here in Dallas. I have the pleasure of being joined by Chris Penrose, President of AT&T Business IoT. Hi, how are you?
Great to be here today.
Thanks for joining me. So we've got a number of topics that I know you've covered over the last few days that I would just love to delve into with you, particularly IoT and some of the exciting things you're doing around that space. And in the context of, I guess, what you're doing with first responders and FirstNet, what can you share with us on what you've been doing lately?
Well, obviously, we're honored to be building out FirstNet, and really giving a dedicated network to our first responders. And what that's allowing us to do is open up a whole bunch of great IoT use cases. One of the big ones is actually connecting the cities and actually using the street infrastructure.
Right.
And a couple good use cases on that. Or think about when we put sensors up on the light poles, we can begin to potentially control traffic flow, maybe get an ambulance to a situation more quickly. We can also put sensors up to actually detect gunshot detection, so we can immediately get the police to the exact point of the location. So I think that the city infrastructure provides a great foundation for us to bring a lot of IoT innovation.
One of the things that people may not appreciate is that some of these sensors aren't necessarily overly intelligent, that they're relatively dumb sensors in a positive sense, but the data that's coming back out of them and the analytics and the smarts you're gaining from those is often done at the back end. Give us some insight into kind of what that model looks like and what you're deploying out in the field, whether it's on poles or on vehicles and so forth, versus what's actually at the back end, the infrastructure that's part of the AT&T business world.
Yeah, so we're seeing this happen a lot actually with cameras and the need to process some data locally, but then take some data back and really do a lot of the heavy lifting and deep analysis back, in the cloud. And so I think we're seeing the ability to really understand what data do you need and what do you have to act on immediately versus what do you need you need more information to be able to truly drive the right outcome. That's a great combination that we're really have got the platforms and the network to be able to make that happen.
One of the other exciting things I've seen come out of the AT&T business world is that the data sets that you're pulling through, multiple projects can work on them. So you might have one sensor looking for a gunshot. You might have another platform looking for something else. So is it the case that you're finding more and more use cases for the same data sets from these same sensors?
Yeah, I think you're seeing the ability, I always say like a camera's, worth a picture's worth 1,000 words, camera is kind of worth 1,000, data points, and you can get a lot of information off of these images that you can use in multiple different, places. I also, think when you're just putting, basic sensors onto things, it's not just, taking that data set, but taking it and merging with other data sets makes it a lot more powerful. And so I think it's a combination of all the data is really what drives the amazing outcomes.
Now, talking of cameras, we've seen a number of things on people with regard to devices. We've seen cameras on policemen, we've seen other sensors around the place. Certainly with military, we've had Air Force, Navy, and particularly Army on the ground with different devices. In many ways, they've had too many devices at a certain point. I think we had a tipping point now where the devices are getting smart enough that we can reduce the number of them. What are you doing around the Internet of Things with regard to first responders and sensors on those people and around them?
Yeah, so I think a couple new technologies have been really emerging here lately. These low power wide area networks allow us to actually get much longer battery life and much smaller size. And those have been a couple big drawbacks in the wearable space to date. And then I think also being able to tie these things together so that if I pulled my gun, it would actually automatically kick off my camera. So I'm not worried about trying to do too many things. They're actually tying off seamlessly. We're also seeing great use cases, I think, think about a fireman going into a building and being able to monitor the heart rate in real time so you can know that are they in danger. Cardiac arrest is a really big situation for firefighters, and so being able to constantly monitor those folks in the scene of the battle, this is a great opportunity for us to use IoT for the greater good.
Yeah, it's almost one of those unspoken risks where running into a burning building is all well and good, but your adrenaline levels go through the roof and your adrenochrome, et cetera, endorphins are off the chart, and then all of a sudden, if you've got a health challenge, that you're also at risk separate of the fire.
Exactly.
There are a number of other exciting areas around this space. One of the things I was really interested to see that you're deploying is drones, and not just drones for the sake of drones, but you've done a number of things around having drones look at antennas and reduce the risk of engineers going up on the antennas. Where are you going with the whole drone space, particularly with the, I guess, what you're doing with FirstNet and first responders and the whole IoT space?
Well, we made some pretty interesting announcements earlier this year with actually doing a flying cow, and we've really put up immediate cell coverage in an area that didn't have cell coverage using a drone. So I think getting coverage into difficult to cover situations is a good place, but I also see drones as a use case in public safety as really being that first responder before the first responder goes in.
Right,
how do we get drones and to be the eyes and go into dangerous situations? So if it's a flood zone, how do we get an assessment of the situation? How do we potentially fly a drone into a fire situation to know where's the best entry and exit points and how should we attack the fire? So I think that drones really become that first line of defense and enabling them, whether they're airborne or on the ground, putting them in to harm's way first is the right way to go.
And let's face it, the cost of a drone, although it may be high, is far less than a human life.
Exactly.
And also we can deploy them en masse. You could put potentially 100 drones into a large building and not have a single human in there yet. One of the other things I was really keen to get your insights on, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, was we've seen this transition and I guess a pivotal shift in many ways, that the data you're collecting through the Internet of Things and these smart sensors on first responders and now the drones out in the field, we've been collecting a lot of data and doing historical analysis in the past, if you'll pardon the pun. We got good at doing real-time analysis. Where are we at with predictive analysis? So when you're pulling this data through smart sensors and even dumb sensors and deploying drones, you're pulling into both FirstNet and the AT&T Business infrastructure. Where are we at with the predictive piece of this challenge?
Yeah, so that's really where it's moving today. We've gotten pretty good, as you mentioned, about reacting to the data sets we're getting, but how do we get in front of it and be able to predict where will that fire go next and what do I need to be doing? And I think that it's actually a combination of using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and pulling together more and more data sets so you can build the right models around prediction. That's really where it's going to go, and that's really what unlocks the true benefits in IoT.
Indeed, yeah, it's an exciting future for us, and I imagine that over time you'll have additional partners who will plug into that data securely and with permission and get more and more value from it, more and more insights. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me on camera, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and learn a bit about what you're doing with the Internet of Things inside the AT&T business world.
Thank you very much.
And you've got a very exciting job title. So really appreciate your insights, appreciate your time. It's been an exciting couple of days here. Folks, thank you so much for joining us on this little chat about Internet of Things. And we're at the end of day 2. We've really appreciated your patronage online in digital and social. And with that, at the end of day 2, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure having you. Cheers.